All right, in 3, 2, 1.
Run! Go! Get to the podcast!
Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a podcast?
I have come here to chew bubblegum and podcast. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hey everyone, welcome to Get to the Podcast. Let's get to the podcast with number 2. My name is Diego D'Souza.
I'm Nick Gambino.
And I'm Neil Carson.
And today is a special day. We got an interview.
We got an interview. Or
Yeah.
an interview.
Or
even.
an interview.
An interview. Correct grammar.
Well, that's why I'm
It's important, yes. We do. We have director extraordinaire, filmmaker. We don't exactly know what to call him. Still debating this. Is it Taron?
We're still debating on his name.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is it Taron? Is it Taron? Is it Taron? Is it
forget
Steve?
Steve.
Steve Lexton. We'll go with what he prefers. Not what his parents
What's your
prefer.
Game of Thrones
Yeah.
names?
Yes, it's Taron. Yeah, Terrion.
Terrion.
Sounds like an Asian dish or something, like a teriyaki sauce. So Taron Lexton, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It's good to be here.
So I wanted to get into obviously your short films, the feature film you directed, In Search of Fellini, but
Right.
I really wanted to go earlier and get into the mindset of what got you into filmmaking and what pushed you in that direction from an inspiration standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just loved watching movies. That was the thing that got me into it. I noticed that, movies had an effect on me that nothing else had. I loved music. I loved art. I loved, performance plays. But nothing brought it all together like movies. So, and it was good because I was also kind of a flighty kid. Like I liked all different kinds of things, and I couldn't commit to anything. So filmmaking was good because I didn't have to commit to anything. I could sort of have some of all. Some music, some visual, some performance, some writing. Some of all of those little arts that I liked dabbling in. Suddenly there was this one place where all of those things came together. So, honestly, for me, it was just to sort of just to satisfy all those different little creative needs that I had. And I figured out how to crack the lock of my mom's safe where she kept her video camera. And so from that day forward, I was a filmmaker. I remember that the first movie I saw in theaters ever was Jurassic Park.
Wow.
And I remember that it just blew my mind. And I'm just going to say something controversial. I think that the VFX in that movie are still some of the best ever in a movie.
We totally agree.
Oh my God, we said that 30 times in this podcast.
Okay, good. My people.
Far from
because I say
Yeah.
you could really see these artists using technology, pushing technology to tell the story in a whole new way. And there was something so electric and exciting about that. And you could just feel their passion. You could feel it. And you could feel that you were part of history, being made. And I loved that. I loved, honestly, the score for that movie.
Oh, yeah. John Williams.
I mean, give me a break. I could listen to that all day long. I honestly don't think, it's funny because I read the reviews sometimes just for fun of 90s movies, these great 90s movies, and they just pan these movies. I'm like, you guys are so spoiled. You had no idea what you had. But no, I mean, just great storytelling, great, visuals, great music. And all during the 90s, I think that was just there was a golden age that was happening where you had these masters of cinema from the 70s and 80s just at the top of their craft. Technology was coming of age. The audience was sort of becoming more sophisticated. Great stories with great filmmaking. And I just got inspired. And I think it was finally when I saw Gladiator in theaters. It was the 1999 and 2000 were this bizarre, amazing, 2 years where just incredible movies came out. The Matrix, American Beauty, Gladiator, Amelie was a huge influence. Punch Drunk Love during that time. There were just phenomenal movies. Tape came out during that time. I remember seeing. I just started exploding into watching movies. Me and You and Everyone You Know was another movie that really influenced me. Rushmore was a movie that influenced me. I mean, this was I just started discovering how wide and vast that universe is, and I started feeling like I might have a place in it. And I think it was only that. It was only going like, okay, is there something I can do here that would be valuable in this space, where I could also kind of like get my kicks out on, doing all these creative things that I want to do, but also do something that might mean something or be valuable.
Okay, so those films were influences on that time. So then what was the decision you made going forward? Like, how'd you actually then go, okay, so I love these films, but how do I do it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just started cracking into it. I noticed that, a few of my friends also loved filmmaking, so we just started working together, in high school. And I love to travel. Just happened to be asked to film some things on the road, and I really liked that. I just liked the feel of having a camera in my hand. I loved playing with all the horrible Sony in-picture effects that they had. I thought they were the coolest thing, and it'd be like the night vision. I felt so cool at that time as a 17-year-old with a camera in my hands. And thank God at the really this is why, because no one told me at the time how horrible my stuff was. So I was able to keep thinking that it was good long enough to actually finally make it good. So then I went to film school, and I guess that was really it. I realized at that point that I would either love it or I would hate it when I really found out what filmmaking was. And I found out that I loved it. I had a really positive experience. And I found that the whole technology of filmmaking was really, really natural to me. I felt like there was a process there that, I don't know, it just made so much sense. So I'm utterly fascinated with every single part of it. I love the post side of it. I love shooting. I love cameras. I love, story structure, and I love production, and honestly, I love the paperwork. I get so geeked about every little part of it. It's so weird, and
it's awesome. It shows the passion, man. I love the passion. Let me ask you this: where did you go to school for film?
LA Film School. It was extremely new at the time. It was so new that they didn't have a curriculum. They didn't have a class structure really. And at the end of the year, it was a year school. Our diplomas were blank. We unrolled them, and I was like, "Oh, my name's not even on this." Okay, but what they did have is, but what they did have was a bunch of working industry professionals, and they had a soundstage with a bunch of cameras and a bunch of lights, and they kind of just let you make a lot of films, and that was what was so good about it. It was way less theory and a lot more practical. So I probably made 20 films over that year in all different capacities, and that was like. Yeah, then later when I found out, I mean, there were USC Film School graduates in my class who, in their 4 years at USC, had made 2 or 3 films.
Wow!
And they were just desperate to actually learn how to make films now. So they had come to this school that they'd heard was more of like a hands-on, gritty, in the trenches kind of thing. On our very first day, I remember this was sort of like part of their pitch. On our very first day, they had us make a movie.
Wow.
Which we reviewed the second day. So yeah, it was great. It was exactly what I needed. It was very much like the unfluffy version of filmmaking. Like you just get in there and do it.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's interesting because that was exactly what I was going to ask you is like what your takeaway from film school would be. But this sounds like you had a different experience because you hear this all the time. Like you don't need film school, just go out and make the movies. And film school is just like 4 years waste of time. But it sounds like you had a different, like your film school was what film school probably should be, which is way more practical, way less theory, just forcing you into the trenches to make the movies.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally. And yeah, it really was that. And that's like what I'm saying. It was more like their attitude was make movies, just start. And if you have questions, we'll be here.
Yeah.
That's so great.
And that really was what it was. And that was perfect. I always had access to, guys who were producing. I remember there was the producer of the movie Four Feathers at the time, which was, it was a terrible movie, but it was a big movie and it was in theaters. And so I was super geeked about the idea that I could talk to, the producer. And it was a very strange special case where they had to bring in a Bond company to finish the film. And he had all these kind of interesting stories about it. And that was cool. It was sort of happening live. We were with him while he was producing that. He would, he would be on set and then he would come in and he would teach our classes. So as we would encounter problems ourselves, we had instant access. I remember Mole Richardson, forget the name of the guy, but the guy who was running Mole Richardson at the time, he was our lighting guy. So, he would come in and we would go over to Mole Richardson and he would take us through every single light and we get to flip those suckers on. And he was, with wild abandon, letting us handle electrical cable that we were not qualified to handle. And putting our lives in danger every day, like a good, responsible teacher.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
thank God he did, because that's what you do as a filmmaker. You sort of jump way into the deep end, and then you figure out how to swim.
100%.
Get out, yeah.
Yeah.
I went to Academy of Art of San Francisco, and it sounds like the same thing that I went through. They just threw you on there, and like I had this lighting teacher. She actually she has great experience. She worked a lot with Sean Penn and some of the films that he did personally, and she would, like, if we would take like one small thing on a set, she would stop the whole thing, and we have to figure out who the hell fucked up the scene, who fucked it up. So yeah, I love
That's awesome.
I
love that. Yeah,
It's the same thing. I mean, there's a whole industry, even with writing and screenwriting, because I'm a writer and a screenwriter, and what you do, what you see online with that is there's a huge industry around just trying to give you the theory of screenwriting, which you could probably get everything they're teaching you in one little book. And have everything you need. Everything else you're going to learn is by writing, looking at a blank screen with a little cursor blinking at you, and just start goddamn writing. I remember, because I remember when I started doing that, being like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I literally was forcing it, and I was embarrassed for myself writing the things I was writing. And I was like, this is so embarrassing. And now it's comfortable. Now I'm going to go, oh, I'm just going to write this thing and just do it. And you get that confidence and learn what's right, what's wrong, only by doing it.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and I think it's like it's a balance of having this like unreasonable amount of confidence in yourself, and also total acceptance of everything you don't know, and being totally excited to discover and fall in those potholes and have to figure out what the hell happened and fill that up for the future, but also just being willing to do it. I remember we had this amazing writing teacher who his mantra was, "You know enough." Stop thinking you don't know enough to write a screenplay. You know enough. You've lived enough. You've thought enough. You feel enough. Like you right now, you don't have to go live 90 years of life and travel the world and become some sage in order to write a screenplay. Like, you've lived life. Right. So just trust that you do have something to say that might be important to somebody. And it was really like a very strange concept at the time, and it kind of broke down the walls. So I was just willing to start filling in that blank page.
That's great.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you do LA Film School, and then what happens after that?
Lunch.
So after that, I quit. After that, I just decided I'm not going to do filmmaking.
And here we are today.
No, honestly, I mean, the funny thing, the irony is that film school was a great experience until my graduate film. On my graduate film, I decided to go all out and clean out my savings, my little savings I had as an 18-year-old kid, and just do everything. I wanted to do it really right, So I was gonna hire a big crew, a union crew. I was gonna get big lights and trucks. We got a grant from Panavision, 35 millimeter film. It was like I hired a big DP. And we were just going to make like this great film. And I felt like I had this good idea. And then I went through this whole process, months and months of work. And then I watched the film at the end, and it was terrible. It was just awful. And none of that stuff had made it better. It was the fact that I had used a big camera didn't make it look better. Yeah. The fact that I had these trucks lining the street didn't make the story better. The fact that I had spent all of my money didn't make the audience like it more. And I realized that my center of gravity as a filmmaker was totally off. Wow. And that I had become much more involved or obsessed with the process rather than the result.
Yeah.
And sort of based on that, I really did. I just considered, and also there were some unsavory characters involved. It's a whole reality TV show that should have been shot.
It's a movie in itself.
Yeah.
It was very Project Greenlight. But I honestly just decided that I was done. And I was like, if this is what filmmaking is, I want nothing to do with it. And fortunately, my mom is fantastic. And at the time, she basically pulled me back off the edge and gave me a pep talk and said, listen, I want you to at least give yourself a chance and make a film the way you would want to make it, and not try and make it the quote standard way. And so she gave me a chance. She has a human rights organization where she travels the world and she teaches kids about human rights.
Yeah.
And she happened to be about to go on a world tour to 13 different countries. And, I like to travel. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll come along and I'll film this. And meanwhile, I'll also start creating what she needed, which was a music video for her thing, which honestly at the time sounded like just a terrible, cheesy idea. It just sounded like the worst thing. I was like, good, now I'm really going to bottom out, right? This will be my awful swan song. But it was like, great, let me just kind of bring it down to brass tacks and go, well, okay, if I just wanted to just focus on the result rather than the process, and if I just wanted to focus on the things that I like about filmmaking and make something that I would want to watch, and don't worry about what equipment I use, don't worry about what crew I have or don't have, or budget I have or don't have, and just focus on that. And honestly, I had a fantastic experience. The result came out so much better. I had a tiny little crew. My mom was running a school at the time, so my crew were her students. Were like middle school students. Like I had 10-year-olds pushing the dolly. And it was really like the most unglamorous film set ever. But the result was meaningful, and it really did reach that audience, which was the people she was trying to reach, the kids and the human rights leaders that she was trying to reach. And honestly, it was a much more satisfying experience. And I realized, if it was that, then I did want to make filmmaking.
Right.
Then I was interested, and I've never kind of looked back from that point.
That's awesome. Now that was the United music video, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love that video. I remember when that came out, I saw that actually, and I wanted to ask you a question because I'm a huge hip hop fan, right? I'm like from the old school, like Rakim and Nas and Big Daddy Kane, like all that type of stuff. And I remember seeing that, and whenever I'd see these kind of PSA type videos or whatever that were trying to incorporate hip hop, it felt like people just parodying hip hop. And I remember when I saw that, I was like, these kids are flowing, and it felt so real. Who the hell were those kids? Were these kids from the school? Like, I always was like, how did they nail it?
Yeah.
It's so funny. Well, the hilarious thing also is that because of that fact, I mean, I'm South African, so I'm technically African. I don't know. I don't want to go like off the rails here.
What are you?
But I remember the disappointment that many people would have, the disappointment on their face when I would meet people after making that music video, and they would think that I was going to be black. Because this was like, they heard it was a South African filmmaker. People thought I was that rapper. I don't know what happened, but really, okay, this is what it is. I'm a fan of great talent. I'm a fan of artists. So in any project that I'm working on, I'm always just looking for people who are already totally talented and trying to get them together and really let them do their thing at their best. So in that case, really, it was just a matter of, we were looking. I certainly wasn't gonna be the one to write that song, but when we found the guy who did, his name was Chris G. He was in Florida. It was really random. We just had our lines out, and honestly, it was like when we heard it, we recognized it instantly. The young actress who was rapping, she was just amazing. She just came in for a casting call, and it was just an instant like, oh my God, she is incredible. We need to let her do her thing. And she wrote that rap herself, and she's 12 years old. So a lot of, and ever since then, that's really what I feel like is my place as a director. Is I'm like, great, I'm gonna try and contribute as much as I can as a creative person, but I'm also gonna get out of the way of great creative people. I'm gonna put them in a room and try to just let them do their thing as much as possible.
Right.
And that's really been the best way for me.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay.
That's cool.
Cool. Okay, so that was United video. So that was what sparked it again. That's when you were like, oh, I can actually do this thing. I've relivened my purpose for this filmmaking thing.
Completely. And I really realized that was the point where I realized as a director, I don't have to do everything.
Yeah.
And that maybe is something that a lot of directors, young directors especially, feel like there's so much pressure on them. They have to be just a screaming genius out of the gate. Otherwise, they're a failure. And I really realized then it's not about that. It's about finding talent and bringing it together and helping people to who are great individually to do something better together.
Yeah.
And that really is the key, is that the final product should be better than what any one of us could have done by ourselves. And it's always surprising, and it's inspiring and exciting, and it makes you want to do it again.
Right.
Yeah.
So that to me is what's so interesting about it. And for me, just keeping the process as simple and easy and laid back as possible for everybody involved, so we just can have a good experience. Like, if we're going to do this for our life, it might as well be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then what was next after that?
So, oh God. So then
No,
I
I'm
just
sorry,
started
I'm
making
making
a
you like
billion.
remember your whole life.
Like, I don't even remember.
What happened that Thursday? What happened that Thursday? No, I'm just kidding.
So, no, I mean, it was just a series of commercials. I remember that based on that human rights music video, the same organization then wanted all 30 human rights to be made into public service announcements, which again sounded like just a crazy idea.
Yeah.
But when I started engaging in that process, I found that I loved it. And most importantly, they were supportive of the process that I wanted to do. So at the end of the day, I had a really positive experience. And we had made some really meaningful, short films that were reaching people. And those PSAs are still playing today. They've played for, I think it's like 500 million people, some crazy thing like that. They just keep having their own life because, frankly, that was the other aspect of it, is I realized there are so many people in the world who need and want to communicate something or get some message out, something important, something that really would be good to get out there, but they can't do it. And filmmaking is the way that humanity communicates to itself right now. That and Facebook. And but I think that's the key. Is I'm like, okay, if I could be a conduit of sorts for, in this case, the United Nations, which had a mandate since 1947 to teach human rights to people around the world, right?
Yeah.
They had signed this document, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is a great document. It outlined all these human rights, and then nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
So it's great to have an idea, but it's even better when people know about that idea.
Right.
And these PSAs were sort of like the wedge that helped people start to understand it.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, that's super cool.
That's awesome.
I wish I was a better person. All right, let's move on.
I do too.
Me too.
I wish he was. I'm good.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, Diego.
But look, I this was like really hearing you say that. It's really incredible because I work for an organization called Hug CEO, and we go around to different countries and we go to orphanages and we try to motivate them, inspire them, and take them things that they needed. So just to hear that you're involved in this is just super awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah, and I think that's part of it. I had cleared up something early on about the concept of message, because you hear message films and it had a negative connotation. It was like, oh, if you're trying to say something, if you're trying to have an impact, well, that's just bad. And I realized that no, actually, all the great movies that I'd liked, even from the 90s, like Braveheart. You say The Matrix. You take American Beauty. Okay, this is just a dark movie. Love that movie, right?
Love it.
Love that movie. And it was like, that was a message film. He had something to say, and he wasn't afraid to just say it.
Yeah.
And the audience appreciates that. I think we can get as filmmakers into this muddled territory where it's like, oh, we don't really want to say anything. We want to let people have their own interpretations, and it's like whatever they want to take from it. But I'm like, no, fuck that. Say something.
Right.
Yeah.
Have some courage. And if that thing is something that might make people's lives better, I mean, Jesus, American Beauty is not a PSA for human rights, but it is an amazing, profound film that makes you think about your life differently. And that's why I think art just has a very important role. And it's like, we can say it's fun. We can say it's, something that we do for our personal passion, but it's also fucking important.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that we got to have people saying things and making and stimulating the culture and stimulating the way people think. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing here on this planet?
Totally.
Yeah.
So we're known for our tangents here, so I just want to talk about American Beauty for 1 second.
Oh my god.
good.
I really think that movie is, I know a lot of people love it, but I feel like it's underrated. Like, people don't remember that movie. Like, there's this thing where they just go, oh, that was a weird movie or dark. I'm like, rewatch that movie. It's actually not even as dark as you remember it. That movie has this light, almost like Office Space. If you watch Office Space, he's going through what What's His Face went through in Office Space, like where he's like, he doesn't give a shit anymore, and he's just like, whatever.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's very flippant, and there are dark elements to the film, but that movie is phenomenal.
It's profound, and it was also
deep.
Thomas Newman breaking into an entire new phase of his music.
Yeah,
which utterly changed, and he is one of the most under-celebrated composers on the planet. He's never won an Oscar, and this guy utterly changed the face of film music in Hollywood, and is just totally unrecognized for it. But I remember that movie made such an impact on me that I think I reference it in everything that I do. I think that what Connie Hall did with the cinematography, the music, everything about it, that kind of wry balance of dark and light, was it was masterful, man.
Yeah.
It was absolutely masterful.
That screenplay, like I literally look at that and go, that's the kind of thing that would make you want to quit screenwriting. Like that's the kind of thing that would make you want to be like, I just can't. I don't know if I can ride that kind of perfection in writing. Like just that tonal.
Well, see, That's why I loved Wes Anderson, because especially his early films, they were so imperfect that I could be inspired by them, but not intimidated enough to never want to make movies. Whenever I would see Ridley Scott films, I just wanted to quit. I was like, that's it. I can't do it. I'm
come
like,
on, Blade Runner, like Alien. No, I'm good.
He's got it. Exactly.
It.
It's like, okay, he's got this on tap. I'm like, I don't need to contribute anything. I'm not needed here.
Exactly. Just leave it all up to him. We'll be good.
Totally.
All right. But Ridley Scott went from commercials to major films.
He did 5,000 commercials or something.
Yeah, it's like an ungodly number of commercials before he made his first film.
He says that's what really, like, for him, because he did that before he got into filmmaking, like into movies, and he said he owes everything from that.
Yeah,
like that's where he learned everything on how to make a movie.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about commercials is it really is a full production. There's actually no particular difference as a filmmaker. There's no difference. Between doing a production wise from doing a commercial to doing a feature. It's the same. You basically have to it's like a pop-up village. You have to suddenly create this massive organization and then do something quickly and then disassemble it.
Right.
And it was never there. It's like a traveling circus.
That's effectively a short film. It's effectively a short film.
It really is. And you really get, and it really, it's going through the process complete, from beginning to end, and then doing it over and over and over and over again. And that's it. That's the filmmaking process. You go from pre into prod into post, and you do it again. And the biggest thing I would say from a feature standpoint was I realized I was used to sprinting, and I realized a couple weeks into my feature that is definitely not a sprint. That is a marathon. And you use a completely different set of muscles. Yeah. But by that point, obviously, you've sprinted yourself through several weeks, and you're basically dead. So you have to reboot your entire psyche in order to make it through the rest.
Right. All right, good. So I know there's this other short film you did shortly after that, Struck. Right? Which I had missed. I mean, it's a short film, so I guess those are sometimes easier to miss than features. But I saw this within the last couple months. I love the concept to it. It's simple, but I love the way it was kind of executed.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. It was definitely that was the epitome of me just making stuff with my friends.
Yeah,
that was very much like, okay, I just want to have fun as a filmmaker. I like doing things that are meaningful, that are important, that get out there. I'd done a bunch of PSAs at that point. And I wanted to do something random, to be totally frank. And I wanted to do something that was just a joy. So that was the most stress-free, fun filmmaking experience ever. Right. And all of those guys were just so happy to be there. And what was great about that is I was much more involved also in the production side of things, and I wanted to design a film that was fun, design a film that was a good product, but it was also fun to make.
Right.
And so even the way that each of those actors was involved, it was like 2 hours that each of them needed to be there. Wow. It was so easy for them.
Right.
Yeah, and it was really like I just took I liked that the concept lent itself to a positive, filmmaking experience.
Right.
And again, if I'm going to do this my entire life, if we're going to be filmmakers, God, shouldn't it be enjoyable?
Fun. Right. Exactly. Well, everything you just described literally is how that film feels. Like there's not really a cynicism to it. Now there is obviously the depressive aspect of it to a degree in that short, but there's this what word would I be looking for? It just feels like there is a joy of the activity. There's a joy of the film. There's like
there's an honesty to it.
It's got an honesty and a higher message to it. It just feels like, and part of that isn't even the way it's filmed. Which I'm going to stroke your ego just for a moment here. Everything that I've seen that you've filmed, shot, all your shorts, the United video, all those things. There's like a beauty to it, even in the visual itself. Like, and that's what I always notice, and it kind of like makes you feel better. Like you're so used to kind of depressing, especially because we expect so much like gritty realism, and like we expect the movies that we watch these days to depress us. And that doesn't really come through in your filmmaking. You do feel the emotion and all that stuff, but there's also this uplifting aspect of it. And sometimes it's in the way it's shot, played out, the music, whatever. But I've noticed that about like everything I've watched of yours.
You can definitely see a passion difference within films, and you can definitely see the passion within what you put into it in a lot of other films. Like you know when you watch a film, like there's not a lot of passion being put in there. There's just like this person's either is burning out or something. Yeah. But
or it's cookie cutter.
Or it's cookie cutter. Yeah. But you can definitely see the difference between that and people that actually have passion into what they do and what they put together. So.
Yeah. And I think, that's the thing is like as a creative person, at your best, your work should be reflecting what you love. Yeah. And I think that's something I've been noticing more and more about films in general is that you really do actually feel where the director is at. It's the director in particular. You sort of feel his demeanor about life. I remember, I watched, have you guys seen The Favorite?
I haven't seen that yet. I really want to watch it. The Emma Stone.
This is fascinating. I made the horrible mistake of seeing this with my mother on Christmas. Just terrible idea.
Everyone watching these weird films on Christmas.
The day for it.
I mean, I saw the trailer. I thought it was gonna be like a nice little, period rom-com. I was like, this is gonna be great. Just dark movie. But it's funny because you get the sense as you're watching that film, it's a gorgeously made film, but you really get the sense that the director hates these people and hates this time. And you really feel it. It's this undercurrent of displeasure. And it's funny. And then you watch, let's say, a Spielberg film, and you feel his delight with everything. And he's so kind of amused and intrigued and having fun with everything. And then you see Ridley Scott, you can sort of feel how he is as a person. Yeah. You can feel the atmosphere and the mood and the weight of it. But it's got a kind of like a heavy beauty. Christopher Nolan, his movies are so cerebral. They're so kind of like just precariously balanced on the edge of what you can handle as a normal mortal. Yeah. And, that's really like, that's what he wants. That's what he feels. I'm sure talking to him would feel very similar to that. Yeah. And, so that's really what it's been. Has been, the things that I love, the things that I want to watch, the things that excite me are the things I want to put in my films. Right. So I mean, with the lighting and the cinematography, I love cinematography. Like I just love it. I love lenses and lights and cameras, and I love I love beautiful images. That's awesome. And I've become less apologetic about I love shafts of light. I love sunsets. I love, deep, saturated, monochromatic, sepia tones. Like I'm very much not the gray, lifeless, kind of sophisticate that I think I'm supposed to be as a filmmaker. Yeah. And I'm just like, no, I actually like that sumptuous classic beauty, Gone with the Wind. I love these things. Lawrence of Arabia. I'm like, why not have epic movies? Why not have gorgeous, movies that sweep you away? Yeah, paint with light and really just have fun with it. Right. And so, I've become, and in my feature, that was sort of a decision I was like, I'm just going to lean into it. And if people hate it, they can hate it. Mm-hmm. But this is what I like, and I'm just going to do this the way I want to do it.
Right,
So you're saying you love what you do.
That's very weird, man. That's very weird.
Crazy concept. I don't get it.
Exactly
at all.
We thought you were more cynical. We're gonna have to end this interview right here. I'm sorry.
I was actually having a crazy conversation with a friend of mine where he was telling me that he gets annoyed at Chef Ramsay, and I love watching
Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, Gordon Ramsay. I love him because even in his ways, he shows his passion.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, I'm like, a lot of people consider James Cameron a very like rigid guy. But you see, like you said, you see his passion in his films, in everything, in every detail in there, and I love that. I love that. This is why I'm so passionate about Gordon Ramsay and James Cameron, because they're rough, but they are very passionate in what they do.
Yeah, they just need
just incredible.
The only thing they need is to take a nice little, long walk on the beach and let the sand and water, feel it with their toes, because they need to calm down.
Doing what you're doing.
It's so funny. It's so funny. Yeah. Well, the thing about James Cameron that I find fascinating is it's similar. He's similar to Spielberg in a way in that he is utterly uncompromisingly making it for the audience. So he's not interested in his crew having a good time. He's interested in his audience having a good time.
Yeah.
And if any one of his crew are getting in the way of that, well, he'll let them have it.
Yep.
Because for him, it's only about him and the audience.
Right.
And you notice that, it's funny because Spielberg, I think, actually said that early on. There was a behind the scenes on Jurassic Park, actually. And he said, I'm not making movies for me. I'm making them for the audience. And I think later in his career, he started to make some movies for himself. And they were very different kinds of films.
Munich,
just very, very different.
Schindler's List,
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of awesome and kind of profound to like get that window into his world.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Like I think Cameron in particular, he just kind of doesn't give a shit what his crew thinks. Like he's making his movie for the people he's making it for, not for his grip department.
And God damn it, I love his movies. Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
they're so good. So good.
So one of my professors in film school, he actually worked with Cameron on a film. And he actually told the story that on set there was during like lunch hour, people would just break off and go to lunch,
right?
And go to this like this tea cart. I think I told you guys the story.
Yeah.
Go to this tea cart. And,
on Aliens,
And he would be pissed off. He would be pissed off because like he's zoned in. Yeah. He's like ready and he's doing it. And people would just like stop everything to go have lunch or whatever. So one day what he did is that he went and he bought that cart and he flipped it over. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's awesome. So I was like, no. I definitely said
No, go.
Yeah, no, that definitely says, it's not about you. It's about the people. Get back to work.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, like, I know as a director, when I show up on set and I've got people there who really just don't want to be there, God, there's nothing worse than that. There's just nothing worse than that. So I really take my time now to find people, even if it's a lot fewer people, who really like that's what they want to do. And even working on this particular project, like this is going to help them particularly. So they're interested.
Yeah.
When you get people who are doing their purpose, they're at their best.
Yeah.
And you get people who are just clocking in and clocking out. God, there's nothing worse than that. I'm like, this is art, man. This is filmmaking. This is one of the best jobs in the world. If people are kind of approaching it with a bored or cynical attitude, I'm like, I want nothing to do with them.
Yeah, and if you're doing 14, 16-hour days at a minimum, then why do you want to be around people like that? It's only going to get worse 2 weeks in. Like,
not even that. They could ruin your film. They could literally ruin your film.
Sure.
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally. That's right.
It's funny that you say that. For some reason, that randomly made me reminded me of that movie, The Disaster Artist. Did you ever see that?
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah,
so
like
good.
there's
so
like
good.
we saw this I saw it in the theaters with Nick, and like there's this scene in the movie where they're interviewing the Tommy Wiseau in the movie. Tommy Wiseau's girlfriend's mother, the actress. Like they have an actress playing her, and they're all
Jackie
sitting there.
Weaver, I think.
I forget who played her, but they're all sitting there like eating lunch or something in between takes, and she's telling the cast like the greatest thing that you can do is be an actor or an actress in a film, like because it like. She's explaining like, the joy and like, the excitement of coming to work. And she's like, I've worked other jobs. And she's like, this is the great. And like, she's in the worst movie that apparently, critically is like ever made.
And
like
gives one of the worst performances too.
And gives a horrible performance. But to her, this is like the greatest thing she could ever be doing. Like she's like, every moment is a pleasure just to be here and be behind the camera. And it's almost like securing your immortality in a way by being in film, as long as
it's
civilization.
the ultimate ego trip, really, is what you're saying.
Well, I just thought that was a great moment.
Yeah.
I was like, that's such a cool moment that people like that. Like, I would love to work if I worked on film with people like that, people that are so passionate.
There are some
You have to.
Yeah, there's some real non-cynical points in that movie, and that's one of them. Like I remember that very specifically. It stood out. Like, oh, okay, like we're all sitting here kind of shitting on these people and this experience and the way this movie's made, and these people are like, hey, we just want to make a movie. Like this is so cool to be able to make a movie.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
exactly.
So moving into the feature film you did, In Search of Fellini, which you just referred to, this is where you kind of just went all in with all these techniques and all this stuff. And I noticed that, like, there's even just the scene with Maria Bello and Mary Lynn Rashka, like they're just talking in the kitchen, and just these shafts of light are just kind of coming in. It feels dreamy and like ethereal almost.
This is where we change his name to Mr. Truffaut.
Francois Truffaut. It's
go ahead, please.
It's very, very evident in this film, and I loved it because it really fit. It's not like you just threw that in there. You're not doing like lens flares for the sake of doing lens flares. Like it also fits the tone and the narrative of the movie. You're going for this, this woman, In Search of Fellini, goes off to Italy to find Federico Fellini, and she's in love with his films, and there's all these dreamy kind of sequences. So it is a technique that makes sense for the film. It's not like you just threw it in there.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. You guys are on it. Thank you. These are like very insightful observations here.
Oh yeah, we're ripping off reviews that we read, and we're quoting.
I was gonna say, I think I read that before. No, but I mean, honestly, that's a great point. And this was such a funny project because it's a combination of some really, really disintegrated elements that are having to be integrated. Fellini's films, one of the things that I did as homework for this film was I watched every single Federico Fellini film. Oh, nice. Every single one of them, all 27 of them. And they were as different from my type of film as they could possibly be. I really there was just no overlap at all. And it was funny because it was also, the life of Nancy Cartwright, who is just one of the most joyous, wonderful people. She does the voice of Bart Simpson.
Totally.
Yeah.
Bart Simpson. Let's go crazy.
Yeah, and just to meet her in person, she is the most delightful, effusive, exuberant humans that you'll ever meet. And to sort of marry, and then you have Italy, which is this sumptuous kind of like endless vista of historic beauty, right?
Yeah. Right.
And you just try to pull all these things together. It was sort of bizarre, to be totally honest, but it was totally fascinating for me as a filmmaker to try and integrate all these things together.
Yeah.
And so all throughout the film, we're kind of weaving back and forth between sort of Nancy's universe, my universe, Fellini's universe, and we're trying to braid all of these things together. And I found it. I decided to embrace it early on. So my visual, sense, I kind of imagined that it was going to be a contrasting element against some of the more stark Fellini-esque elements, and that it was going to sort of ground, Nancy's more imaginative and fanciful elements.
Right.
And it was sort of like I wanted to create a space where all of those things could exist.
Right.
And I got to give props to my cinematographer, Kevin Garrison, who is just amazing. He is just an incredible guy.
Right.
And he and I early on, made a decision that we were going to, with wild abandon, just do the things that we loved and do the lighting that we loved, and just not care if it was kind of the modern or sophisticated thing to do. Yeah, we were just going to be like, okay, what lighting do we love?
Yeah.
What colors do we love? What lenses do we love? Let's just make a film that we would want to watch.
That's so cool.
And so all of that, but the point is integrating all of those elements together. It was honestly the biggest creative challenge of my life, and I absolutely loved it.
That's great.
Let me say why I feel like in this film, one, get this out of the way. I don't like you a lot right now because you're costing me a flight for my wife to go to Italy. So,
I'm so sorry.
Just want to get that out of the way. No.
I know I need royalties. Actually, what I need to do.
But here's the thing: what I loved about you, Phil. One thing I learned in film school is that almost every teacher, I don't know if this happened when you went to film school, was that they disliked the dream element. They said too many people are doing that, and people don't do it right. When you did this, the whole thing that I loved about it is that you didn't it wasn't mentioned that this thing was getting ready to be a dream. This part was getting ready to be a dream. It was just in there, and it aligned with everything, and it worked. It was like I was like, wow, this is very innovative in how to take someone from a reality state to being in a dream state. You just don't say it.
Yeah, without any delineation as to when it's dreamy and when it's not. It's almost sort of like, even towards the end, without spoiling too much, there's this like really quick thing where she thinks she sees somebody and it's somebody else.
Exactly.
It's sort of like, where's the dream? Where's the not? Where's
And
the
you
imagination?
accept it.
Yeah.
And you accept it, and it was beautifully done, dude.
Yeah.
It was so incredibly
man.
done. I love that. I was like, oh, and
Thanks.
Like I said, a lot of people do it wrong, and the way you took it on, it was just, I loved it. It was awesome. Yeah.
So
Thanks, man. Yeah, well, that was definitely something in film school that was lambasted constantly. Was like, oh yeah, and then it was all just a dream, like ultimate cop out.
I went to people in class like, hey, man, I did this like.
What's funny is like, exactly. And then, but the funny thing was in watching all of Fellini's films, that's his thing. That is literally that's his thing. If he has one thing, it's blurring the line between fantasy and reality. Right. Like that's the thing. That and he loves big women. Those two things.
Those two things.
But really, it was like it was fascinating. So I had to. If I was going to be faithful to Fellini, I had to find a way to blur that line and to have that dream element woven throughout. Otherwise, I wasn't being true to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That's great. Well, this is now we're retitling this podcast "Get to the Platitudes." So we're just going to laud you with compliments. I just wanted to ask you a little bit more. How did you get involved with the film exactly? Like where? I mean, in which process? Because it was written by, I believe, Nancy and somebody else.
Peter Chenis.
Okay, gotcha. And then where did you actually like kind of come into the process? And were you involved with any rewrites or anything, or was it just sort of like, this was completed and then you got attached to the director? Where did that?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually a project that Nancy had been trying to get made for over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was because it was something that happened to her in her life. This was actually a real story. She had gone to Italy to go find Federico Fellini, and she had these crazy experiences. And she wanted to make a film about it ever since.
Right.
It had been a one-act play, a one-man show, one-woman show, that she had done. She had won awards for it, and she had been trying to turn it into a film for a long, long time with Peter Chenis.
Right.
In 2014, she had seen a bunch of the commercial work that I'd done. She'd been in Struck, actually, years before.
Yeah.
And she had a blast doing that. And she just honestly pitched it to me. She told me about the project, told me about, what she was trying to accomplish with it. And I just got excited. I suddenly started seeing the story in my mind. I started seeing the creative possibilities, and I was like, okay, I'm in. Let's do this.
Right.
There had been one thing she was telling me that it was funny in that first pitch meeting. She was like, yeah, I mean, obviously it can't be too expensive. So like we wouldn't really shoot it in Italy, obviously. I mean, so we're re-scripting it to be in America and whatever.
No
and we can
way.
do sets. And I was like, whoa. Actually, funnily enough, yeah, my production company has a lot of experience shooting internationally. And what I've found, ironically, is that shooting internationally tends to be less expensive. Shooting the real thing tends to be less expensive than shooting some fake version of it, and it tends to look better.
Yeah.
So I repitched back to her that we actually shoot it in Italy, in the cities that it happened.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that we did was we took a tour. We went to Italy. Me, and wow, how do you say that? Nancy. There you go. Thee and me and Peter.
The three of us.
But Nancy, Peter, and I had gone to Italy to go take the tour, take the journey that she took as a 20-year-old, and go and revisit all the places, including where she got attacked in Venice, and like walking through the exact alleyways. And she's like, "Yep, right there. That was where, and that was the store where I went and hid."
Is that actually where you shot? Like, because she ended up being in that scene in that movie in the store, right?
Yeah,
it's a blend. It's a blend.
Okay.
Yeah, the actual store she hid in wasn't much to look at. Yeah. We all agreed we should probably pick something better.
Yeah.
But it was really there's a lot of blending. So there are real locations. The guy that she met in Verona, the bridge where he lived, that was the real place. We actually went to the house where he took her. as a young woman and proposed to her. Really did propose to her. Wow. On their second day of knowing each other.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. So that was kind of the thing, was there was this real authentic story there. Yeah. And then there was this Fellini element, which is as crazy and zany and dreamlike and fantasy-like as you can possibly imagine. And then there was Italy. And it was just blending all of these things together into, what the final movie was, which is, very, very unusual. Right. So, as we started taking those tours and then her script and seeing how, how she wanted to have it told. At every turn, I tried to do two things. One, bring it back to, encourage her as a writer to bring it back to the real story and to ground it even more in Fellini's universe.
Right.
So, that was really my involvement. But she did the script. It was her and Peter. And they did a fantastic job.
Okay, and the movie takes place in '93. Was there any? Do you know if there was ever any time where they were thinking to actually do it back when she would have done that trip, like '73 or whatever that was? Was there any thought of doing that?
Yeah. There was. The reason why we put it in '93 is because that's a very important date in Fellini's life.
Or end of life.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah,
and even that big film festival, Tutto Fellini, that was a real film festival that happened in 1993.
Oh,
and Martin Scorsese was actually the one who was there at the festival. Kicking it off.
Oh wow!
And
cool.
and Fellini actually, it was the first time they were going to show all of Fellini's films, and Fellini died on the second day of that festival.
Wow!
Oh man!
Yeah, so the whole tone of it changed from a celebration to sort of a
mourning,
a eulogy of sorts.
Yeah.
And as such, I wanted this film to encompass every one of his films. So there's a reference to every single Fellini film in this film, and for the Fellini files out there, there's a lot. It's a lot.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, good. And the main girl in this that played the lead, she looks like a young Rebecca De Mornay or something. Every time but she was great, and I feel like I'd maybe seen her before. I haven't really looked up her credits, but she was fantastic. I love her.
Yeah, she's a chameleon. It's funny. Her name is Ksenia Solo, and she is incredible. She is a machine. She is the sweetest human being, but she's absolutely a tank in terms of work ethic, in terms of talent and skill, and she's a real filmmaker. She's also a director in her own right. She was in a series called Orphan Black.
Oh, yeah.
She was in Black Swan. She was in a series called Lost Girl. She's now on a project Blue Book.
Okay.
Which is new series. She is absolutely incredible. At the time that we were filming, she was on a series called Turn, Washington Spies, which was an AMC show.
Okay.
And honestly, it's funny because she is so different from role to role that when they sent me clips of her work, like I got her audition, she was the sweet little blonde, girl and looked perfect for the role. Then they sent me some clips of her previous work, and it was this black hair villainous beast of and I'm like, where's Ksenia? I don't understand. They probably made a mistake. It's some other person. And she is just such a range as an actress, and was a joy to work with.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's the best kind of actor to me, is one who can really do anything.
Yeah. Exactly. So that was the last. That came out in 2017, 2018, right?
Yep.
So are you working on another feature at this point? Are you developing anything?
I am, yes. Right now I'm working with.
Did you hear his voice? You go straight answer. Should I say it?
Yeah, I am.
This is this is the pitch part. Yeah, exactly. This is thank you. Just teed that up nicely. No, I mean, I think what really happened was all of us on In Search of Fellini, the crew and the cast, were so happy with the process and the production and the experience of it that we just couldn't wait to do it again. So what's happening right now is we're putting together another feature that's even bigger, even crazier, goes to even more places, and really being run by the same crew, same people. And
awesome.
It's going to be kind of all that Fellini was in terms of a celebration of the world and something that makes you want to buy a ticket somewhere. This is gonna run your bill up, really, really high.
Damn it.
With wives wanting to take, trips to different
So I
places.
should not show it to my wife.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Definitely do not. This is going to be bad. But it's a love story on 7 continents, is what it is.
Wow. 7 continents. Wait a minute.
Yes.
You can only film on 5, goddammit. What do you mean 7? That's crazy.
That's the Easter egg, Nick. That's the Easter egg.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, it's sort of this idea of, well, maybe the best way to do this is just to do it for real. And so, we went to Italy for real. We went to these places for real. We found it was easier to go to the actual Colosseum than to try and fake the Colosseum. And so we sort of went, okay, well, what about the rest of the world? Would this same principle apply? And that's what this movie's going to be. It's going to be a big, crazy filmmaking experiment of, well, how big can you go with that idea?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
when I say love story on 7 continents, I really mean it.
Holy shit. So you're going to actually film in Antarctica. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Like he's trying to pull it out of you.
Be safe, man. I'm like, be safe. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Here's my question.
Wait, hold on. I want him to say something else. Like that.
I'm trying to keep him safe. I get it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Nick's trying to pull it out of you.
No, that's crazy though. That's nuts.
Yeah, it is, and that's sort of what's fun about it. I mean, I think honestly, if it wasn't challenging for us, it wouldn't be interesting.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, like you said, with the dream, right?
Yeah.
It's so. And with the lighting and with that whatever, it's like if it's sort of tacked on to the wrong idea, it doesn't work. So much of what my job is, I think, is to find these centers of gravity that can pull in all these elements that I naturally love. I love traveling. I love the world. I love, pushing myself and my crew to go to farther and farther and crazier places. And it's all about having the idea, the creative idea, where all of those things are a natural part of it, where it sort of has to be done that way in order to be done right. And so, yeah, that's really the most exciting part, is that there is a story and an idea and a script that demands that, demands that we actually do those things in order to be done right.
That's so cool.
2 questions with In Search of Fellini.
Oh, you're going back to that?
Yeah, I am. I'm giving the guy
We're done
a break.
with Antarctica for now?
No, I'm giving the guy a break.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask him but I want to ask him if you guys have a shooting date, like when you're going to start shooting.
It'll be later this year.
Okay, cool.
Well, one of the questions was, did you do any guerrilla shooting during this film?
That is a great question. Okay, so the answer is no, because I had done enough guerrilla shooting early on to see the pluses and the minuses of that. But the answer, I've been shut down enough times, right? Yeah. But the answer really is yes also, because what I wanted to do, what I found interesting about filmmaking, was to not have like a big and a small version of my productions. I just wanted to find the right version. And so for me, like, all of my days are guerrilla days. All of my crews are guerrilla crews. It's always small. It's always live. It's always a minimum amount of what's needed. And like, for example, in Italy, there were extraordinary things we were able to do because we were tiny, because we were just a tiny little crew that was with very, very specific needs that sort of weaved in between, that dove through the loopholes in the system. So we were able to get $100,000 shot for $1,000.
Oh, wow.
We did pay the $1,000, but it didn't cost $100,000. So that's why I say, like, we made a $20 million movie for, a lot less than that. And that's really, to me, what's fun about it is I go, great, how can I get the Colosseum? How can I get San Marco Square in Venice? How can I be on the Grand Canal in Venice with one gondola and totally cleared out at the perfect time? And that's the challenge to me, is like, if you can reduce the fluff on your set, suddenly you become much more acceptable to people. And that guerrilla mentality of being that sort of small fighting force, getting in there and getting your shots, like, it's just a way of life that still works, even if you're paying stuff. You're just paying a lot less.
Right. Well, to quote Jurassic Park, clever girl.
Yeah, there you go.
Smart. Very smart.
Yeah, life finds a way. Filmmaking finds a way. Yes.
Filming finds a way.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And my second question is, just because your film was So to me, it was open ended.
It wasn't to me. I don't know what you're talking about. You said that before. Yeah, I'm like, just so you know.
I love it. I love that you're arguing. That's great.
We had this
I've done my
argument
job.
before. I'm like, no, it's clear.
Did we? I
Yeah,
just
yeah, we-
mentioned
yeah,
something.
over the-
It wasn't even an argument.
All right, well, in my head, I was like, shut the fuck up, Diego.
You
Like,
probably
that's what I was
were.
saying.
You probably were. So, did she ever meet Fellini?
Well, just let people watch the movie.
That's I just want. If you don't want to answer, it's perfectly fine. I love the open ending. I love the fact.
Let's see what he says.
Yeah.
That is the question, isn't it? That is the question.
that is the
You'll have to ask Nancy.
Oh, that's a
have
good,
to-
that's
good
all
answer, good answer.
Because if it's
All
based
right.
on a true or inspired by the
Yeah.
true story, I guess that would.
Yeah.
That does have a
That's
real.
a great answer. I
real
love
ending.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I will say that she kept me on tenterhooks for as long as humanly possible.
That's awesome.
Because I had the exact same question.
Right.
And it's funny. I would say that even if you knew the truth of what actually happened, you might still have questions.
Right.
It's fascinating. It's an amazing story, and she's an amazing person. You guys should also talk to her. She's
We would love to.
Oh
Yeah,
if
that
you
would
can
be
say-
great.
I would
She's
love to.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
she's
the only
incredible.
reason I ask is because it was based on a true story, and I would love, like, she was so passionate about being in that journey that I would have loved that she met him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
And that's the only reason
Yeah.
I asked. It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
related to the film. It's more related to
Yeah,
her
like,
true
did she
journey.
actually-
Yeah.
Well, I
yeah,
guess-
100%.
I guess we're gonna have to ask her. So
Yeah,
listen,
we're
if
gonna-
you want to set up that, communication or try to help
Yeah,
us,
connect you guys up.
Yeah,
No worries.
That would
Yeah.
be great. All right, good. Well,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. All right, Neil, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I actually love the fact that everything was shot on location. And like, if you listen to the podcast, like, I'm a big advocate of like less computer generated imagery and more practical effects, even with like makeup. Like, we recently talked about
Yeah.
Pan's Labyrinth, Guillermo del Toro
Oh
film.
my god.
Oh yeah.
And like how prosthetics have gotten so incredible. But
Yep.
yeah, no, I love the way this film was shot. Like, when me and Nick watched it together,
Yep.
and I was just like floored by like the surreal aspect and the cinematography. And that's like that's one of the things that actually, when we all kind of first met and got together, like, that was the thing that drew me towards the interest in filmmaking and film in general, was cinematography. I loved how one cinematographer can, like,
Yeah.
like communicate a certain feeling or like
Manipulate
like
you, really.
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, there are films that I've seen that I'm like, that's a great film, but I feel like it was shot poorly. Or I see a film that's like
Right.
not a good film, but it was shot incredibly.
Yeah.
And,
Right,
and
right.
it's all comes down to me to like the music and the cinematography. I feel like in many ways, like, really captures that.
Yeah.
And I feel like this
Well,
film
that's
was
really
shot really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Well, yeah, it's funny because moving pictures. It really is. This is what filmmaking is that camera. That really was the big innovation.
Yeah.
So the use of that camera, I find it funny when filmmakers don't really use the camera or don't really kind of make that a character in their film, because it's the main character really of filmmaking in general. It's like it was the big breakthrough that made all of this possible. So for me, like, I majored in cinematography at film school. I realized early on in film school that that directing was much more of an art and much less of a science. And that I was much more interested in learning, while I had these professionals around me, learning the science of cinematography.
Yeah.
Because that is really the key that unlocks these dreams, these dream worlds. And if you can use that camera, it's so funny because, as a young film fan, I loved the VFX movies. I loved Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I loved CGI in early in the 90s Disney movies. Anytime I would see CGI, I would just totally geek out. and I still love it, but I do think that to be done, it has to be done right. And that tends to be really expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it was more like my respect for that whole area to not even try it unless I could afford it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I really have leaned hard on my camera, because all the effects that I want to create have to be things that I can really do
In camera.
I don't want to try and pretend that I can make spaceships when I really can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that I can make something in my laptop that's going to impress people when it's really not. So yeah, reality sort of is my fantasy world then, and I've realized that the world is beautiful enough, is amazing enough, is stunning enough that it's like that actually can carry the movie for me.
Well, that's the thing about Jurassic Park too. If we keep bringing back talking about that film is that it wasn't the special effect, it was the reality of it. That's what got people so connected. It was the reality of the special. Like we keep talking about that. Was it Brontosaurus?
Brachiosaurus.
In that first scene.
I don't got it.
Oh, it wasn't. It wasn't Brachiosaurus.
What am I, Ross Geller? I don't know. I don't know dinosaurs.
I didn't go to the museum that much when I was young. But you know, when you see that Brachiosaurus in the beginning scene,
oh my God,
it was
that
the
scene.
reality of it that just caught your eyes. You know, you didn't.
Yeah, you were really seeing it.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't like, oh wow, that's a special. I was like, holy shit, that's real.
We had never seen anything like that.
It's a combination of like, you know, excellent directing, excellent acting. Their reaction, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
You know, they're looking at nothing and they're acting off of Spielberg's direction and just
Sam Neill and Laura Dern,
sound,
man.
But even like that, even when I watch it now and it's like, it's up and the music's swelling and then the Brachiosaurus comes down and it's like boom and that like low vibration, it still gives me chills.
Stop it. I can't handle it. So too good. Too good. Well, hey, listen, I got a cheesy point to make. Moving pictures. Moving. They move you.
There it is. There it is.
All right, tell me to shut up. Tell me to shut up now, please.
I actually I wanted to ask
He's
one
got a
thing.
point.
Nick hasn't seen this movie yet, but I keep trying to get him to see it. Called it's a movie directed by Emilio Estevez called The Way. Have you ever seen this movie?
Yes, I have. I have seen that movie. I love that movie.
Yeah, for some reason I watched your movie and I loved The Way when it came out. And I said to Nick, I was like, oh my God, this movie feels so much like The Way because it's on location and all that. Tiago actually participated in the production of that.
Films.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I got to meet him, and after that, we did a project with him. It's called the Gubbio Project.
Oh, Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen, because he like he works with a lot of homeless in San Francisco, and actually one of the priests in San Francisco is like his best friend.
Oh, wow.
So after we worked on The Way, we went and we worked on the Gubbio Project with him in San Francisco, which was super cool to hear him speak and hear his jokes. Just him just laying it out like a real person. It was just super
Holy
awesome.
shit, he's a real person. That's so crazy.
It's weird. Like when you
separate reality into the dream.
Yeah, you know, fantasy from
it's
the reality.
hard sometimes as a viewer to you see a celebrity or something, you grow up watching a person on screen and then you meet him in real life and it's weird.
So normal.
It's a little jarring, I think, at the beginning, but then after a while you're like, okay, this person has their own personality that's separate from their on-screen persona, you know.
Yep, exactly. Well, it's funny too because it's that illusion being made real. It's sort of like there's something kind of profound about that, and not to keep harping on The Matrix, but there was something about the basic concept of we're living in this grand illusion, that really resonates with people. And I think there's something about filmmaking. You're approximating that in a way. Yeah, you're really creating a world which people go into. They get immersed in this reality, which does not exist. You know, you cut to the reverse shot. You didn't even shoot that at the same time. You shot that on a completely different day. Like it's all an illusion, 100%, even if there's no CGI.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of like part of the joy of it is, you know, in order to convince us humans that all of this is real, we need sight and sound and feeling and emotion and conflict and tension, and we need all of these elements to kind of engage us enough in life to believe it, frankly.
Yeah.
And I think movies are the same thing. You know, a good movie, you go into it, you just get into that world. You become that character. You start worrying about the things that they're worrying about. You start being uplifted by the emotion of the film, even though it is not real. It's an illusion. It's totally fake.
All of it.
And so I think there's something profound happening that I am not qualified to understand.
Who really
I am
is?
fascinated by it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Well, this was fantastic.
It's amazing.
We really appreciate you coming on, going through these films you make. If people want to see it, it's In Search of Fellini. It's on Netflix, at least where we're located. It's on Netflix. I don't know. I was just in Singapore. They had all these new shit on Netflix out there, so it's apparently a completely different world.
This is a whole
Netflix
different story.
there.
This is a different podcast we got to talk about.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, guys. This is really awesome, and I love talking to film fans, real film fans, and you guys have an amazing podcast.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us here at Get to the Podcast. That's Get to the Podcast with the number 2. My name is Tiago D'Souza.
I'm Nick Gambino.
And I'm Neil Carson.
Oh, what's the Jurassic Park theme? Do it quick.
Oh,
come on. All right, I'm doing John Hammond. Welcome to Jurassic Park. There you go.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.